Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow, the paranormal yakker. My guest on today's show is Howard F. Beatty. He's a retired naval officer, retired satellite communications program manager, and certified hypnotherapist specializing in spiritual hypnotism. Howard is also an internationally published award-winning author. He is now in private practice as the director of the Evergreen Healing Arts Center in Washington State. I'll be talking with him about his book, The ETs Speak, Who We Are and Why We're Here. Howard Beatty, welcome to Paranormal Yakker.
Thank you very much, Stan. Glad to be here.
That we are not alone in the universe is a given, considering the thousands of UFO sightings that are reported around the world every month. As you rightly say, the bigger questions which we should be asking is, who are they? Why are they here? What are their intentions? Your book answers those questions. Those questions come directly from the source, the extraterrestrials themselves. How, Howard, were you able to connect with them? What method did you use to interview the ETs directly, ask them the questions you wanted to know, and receive answers from them?
In 1996, I became certified as a hypnotherapist through the American Board of Hypnotherapy, and was later certified also by the National Guild of Hypnotists, later also by the International Medical and Dental Hypnotherapy Association. I was conducting private sessions at my healing center for emotional healing, pain relief, things like that. But very soon I was introduced to past life regression when my clients started spontaneously moving to the source of their emotional issue or physical problem or whatever, the reason for their disability or impairment. It just felt natural for me to focus on past life regression. And as I continued to work with my clients and take them up through that past life experience, I automatically moved them through the death in that lifetime experience and back into the spiritual world. And then it just became very obvious that, wow, this is brand new territory. I can explore this now. And so with the help of my clients, I was introduced to the client's higher self, their spirit guide, other angelic beings. I began a research project on my own, gaining more information about the makeup of this spiritual realm that I was occasionally visiting through my clients. And by 2010, I had developed and documented what I call my Spiritual Journeys self-hypnosis program, where I teach my hypnosis clients how to hypnotize themselves and get into an expanded conscious state of expanded awareness that I just call their spiritual area. In this mind, this energy, I was able to hold two-way conversations with my clients' higher self, with their spirit guide, ascended masters, etc., who were able to provide very pertinent and relevant information that was pertinent for that individual on what was causing their emotional disturbance or physical ailment and what they can do about alleviating it. After I developed this spiritual journeys process, a couple of years later, I began at my clients' suggestions, I began to form what I called a spiritual discussion group, where these clients could gather together and share their spiritual experiences in a safe, comfortable, non-judgmental session. And I soon had about a couple of dozen students who were able to participate in this spiritual discussion group. And I later found that about 8 of those were able to teach themselves how to satisfactorily hypnotize themselves through this self-hypnosis program and begin their own discussions with their higher self, their guardian angel, higher beings, with with me as the director of this session and them asking their higher self questions under my guidance and direction. The source, their higher self or spirit guide, could provide the answer, a truthful answer to those questions. We asked a lot of questions too, like what are the crop circles? Who made them? Why? What is the ET presence here in our skies? Who are they? What are their intentions? Why are they here? That became the title of my book, The ET Speak, Who We Are and Why We're Here. And the sessions that I continued for the next several years was very similar to the channeling sessions used by Edgar Cayce, where, remember, Edgar Cayce would go into a deep self-hypnotic state and report back information to questions that were asked either by his wife Gertrude or his secretary Gladys. And these answers purportedly came from what he called the Akashic Record, the record of all information about anything or being in existence. But the main difference between Edgar Cayce's method and my method is that Edgar Cayce was unable to remember anything at all about what he had conveyed during these sessions. But my method, Channel, one of my students who was in self-hypnosis, was able to consciously observe the transfer of information as the source provided the answer to the questions back to me. And I used this method very successfully and repeatedly because it allowed me to question any information that the source might have provided through the channel. If I didn't understand it or if it didn't make sense, I would ask for clarification, give an answer from a different direction. And in this way, I was able to establish a conversation with the external source, the spiritual source. You might ask who the sources were. And of course, initially, the sources included the client's own higher self, the spirit guide or guardian angel, ascended masters, beings that have lived exemplary lives on earth and now back in the spiritual realms, such as Jesus, Buddha, etc. Archangels, deceased relatives and friends can also be contacted, but the validity of their answers and information may be somewhat suspect, depending on their own level of spiritual evolution and development. There's also, we found, many tricksters or deceivers, what we call negative entities out there in the spiritual realms. I was given a very effective procedure by my own guide to make sure that the sources that I was contacting were pure, truthful, and providing valid information. Of course, the additional category of sources that we were able to contact was any spiritual source whatsoever, in addition to angels, archangels, ascended masters, what they called themselves as off-worlders, or what we call extraterrestrials. So without the method that I developed with the spiritual journeys process allows us really to contact any being and ask them information and see what they say. That's kind of a snapshot of how I developed this.
In your conversations with the beings who drive the UFOs, you were able to find out the objectives and intentions of several ET races. What are they?
In my spiritual discussion with a member of the MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and she invited me to a convention, UFO convention, Paranormal Summit here in Washington State. And I was really struck by the amount of negativity that's at these conventions. A lot of people were very confused about why was I abducted? Who are they? What are their intentions? Where are they from? And why isn't anybody in our government listening to my story? Well, I decided then and there with my spiritual research group, these 8 channels that I had, I would investigate these abductors and find out what their story is. Instead of interviewing abductees like many hypnotherapists do, I went straight to the source and interviewed the abductors. The process I used is once I get my client, the channel, into their spiritual area, higher expanded state of awareness, I simply call forward anybody that I want to speak with. So I called for a representative of the Greys, and a Grey appeared, and actually 2 Greys appeared. One was a tall Grey, one was a shorter, small Grey. They provided the information that they are both from different races on the same home world, but the tall grays have evolved significantly beyond the self-imposed limitations of the small grays. The tall grays are not only spiritually evolved, but they're technologically involved and can travel intragalactic, but not intergalactic yet. So they move their spaceship around within our Milky Way galaxy and take their cousins, the small grays, with them as what they see themselves as scientists. Small grays chose as a civilization to restrict themselves solely to investigation of the scientific and materialistic third dimensional world on various planets. They wanted to focus their activities on the physical world without any impairment or information from or about the emotional world. They wanted to understand really, how does physical life work, not only on Earth, but on other planets as well. And in order to understand that, the tall grays are providing this information, because the small grays wouldn't talk with us at all. The small grays chose to harvest DNA information from humans in an effort to compile a catalog of what works on Earth and how it works. And aboard the tall grays spaceships, this DNA is mixed with DNA from other non-human species to create hybrids. And different experiments are conducted to see how these hybrids exist and tolerate different environments. The small grays' whole purpose was to understand how human life worked so that it could be reintroduced to another world if humans continued their very warlike ways and blow up the Earth. Nuclear devastation worldwide.
How many different races did you come across, and where in the universe did they tell you they came from?
I mentioned that the grays, they came from Zeta Reticuli, which is about 39 light years away in a binary star system. Other civilizations have also been introduced to us, because after we got done investigating the grays, my own guides and spiritual overseers of this hypnosis project said, we've given you the information that you asked about the grays, but we have a higher purpose for your book. And we want to give you information that you can include in the book that will introduce the Galactic Federation and some of its members and meet the first contact teams and supporting civilizations during this first contact event. And we were assured that, we could also have in my book the real main reason why some people have been abducted. And I've got to say at this point that since about the 1990s, initial abductions of additional people have slowly decreased. They're not really interested in humans. They have enough information. They don't need further investigation for humans. I think very good. The Galactic Federation representatives that we contacted soon introduced us to other members and their idea of what a first contact event would be. You asked about the first contact teams. Let's get to that. The first contact events, as of 2016, when my book was published, physically present races will be from the Pleiades and Arcturus. The reason being, the civilizations from those star systems appear very human-like, and if we're introduced to them, the sight of the image of them would not cause a lot of fear. They wouldn't appear as ugly monsters. Their thought was, if the Pleiadians and Arcturians appeared, they would look like us and we wouldn't fear them. But they're not the only civilizations involved in the first contact scenario. There's representatives of civilizations from Sirius, Antares, and I'm not sure where they're from, but it was a species that they just call the blue avians because their skin color is blue and they resemble bird-like face. So they're just called the blue avians. I should also say that the ones that are physically present, Pleiadians and Arcturians, they look like us. The others may or may not be in human form. They don't have to be. For instance, when I was talking with the representative Antares, the Antarian said they would be monitoring the emotional state. In other words, are humans developing fear during the first contact event? If there's a great level of fear, the Antarians would be monitoring us, both from their home world and from their ships in our skies, which are cloaked right now. And there's many many other very interested civilizations, but those are the primary ones that are directly involved in the first contact event.
Do these different races you've connected with get along with each other? Are their goals, their intentions for us humans and our planet the same, or are they different?
Just like people, civilizations are different too. Some are physical, some have evolved beyond the need for a physical body. They're spiritual only. But those that are physical and still live in a third dimensional environment have formed what they call the Galactic Federation. They were very specific and very open about what the mission and purpose of the Galactic Federation is. First, it's an option to become a member of the Galactic Federation. When a civilization evolves on their home planet to a level of technology where they become spacefaring, they are normally offered an invitation to join the Galactic Federation if they wish, but the choice is always theirs. Membership is optional. No one is forced to become a member of the Galactic Federation, mainly because they don't want us to continue warlike behavior and become spacefaring at the same time. The Galactic Federation is composed of spacefaring nations who have learned to coexist peacefully. Their purpose, their missions include considering and resolving issues between and among civilizations, promote peaceful commerce within the Milky Way galaxy, and to defend member races in their galactic travels as we become spacefaring. Sometimes the home world of that new emergent spacefaring nation or civilization, their home world may become endangered through a comet or asteroid, something like that. It's the specific example that they gave. They would make sure that the home world survived as they continued their exploration and development. And they also, the Galactic Federation in the Milky Way also coordinates with similar organizations in other galaxies. For example, our closest galaxy to us is the Andromeda galaxy, 3 or 4 million light years away. In fact, we were able to contact one of the representatives of the Andromeda nations, and they provided additional information, which incidentally confirms everything that our own Galactic Federation representatives have provided. I think you're interested in what this first contact event is going to be, not only who's in it, but how's it going to be conducted, how, when, where. Those, of course, were my questions too. And they said, well, we can't tell you when, because time is something that only you third dimensional humans have to worry about. In the spiritual realms, we don't worry about time. There is no time. There's only a sequence of events. In other words, for something to happen, something else has to happen first. And that secondary thing can happen only after the first one happens. But on our world, what they are planning for the first contact event in 2016, I should say, they were planning several first contact events during daylight hours in remote places around the globe. So as the Earth turned on its axis, there would always be a first contact event being done in daylight hours so that we could see them, they could see us. That's one of the prerequisites that they wanted to ensure. During this first contact event, they said that their planning includes 1 to 2 extraterrestrials physically meeting a few very respected individuals, human individuals, in each event. In other words, small meetings. Maybe the UFO would be visible, maybe not. That whether or not it would be visible would depend on our emotional reaction. UFO comes down and lands in front of you. How do you react? If there's fear, then the meeting's going to be very short. But if there's no fear, then protracted and very fruitful conversation can ensue. Incidentally, they wanted to make sure that each of these individual events was televised and broadcasted immediately throughout the world to make everyone know there's no misconception here. This is happening. It'd be televised and broadcasted in the local languages wherever these first contact events occurred. Now that I was given the information about how it would happen, next question is, when will it happen? They said, don't know when, but Four things must happen. First, more than 50% of humanity must ask for the ET's physical presence. In other words, you have to believe in the physical ETs and invite them in. Second, more than 50% of humanity must evolve in their own consciousness into a level of service to others instead of service to self. In other words, your day-to-day life must concentrate more on helping others rather than what's in it for me. The third thing that must happen, or prerequisite for the first contact event, is that it must be safe for the ETs to physically present themselves. The fourth is that it must be safe for humans to accept the ET's physical presence. In other words, there must not be a level of fear among the humans that provokes them into harming either the ETs or themselves. They were the first. That's the first. We were told what has to happen first. When those first four things are satisfied, they went on to say, and this is true no matter what civilization we were talking, Galactic Federation or an individual civilization, they were ready, willing, and able to provide significant post-first contact support in many ways. Able to technologically cleanse Earth's atmosphere and oceans. They emphasized they're not here to clean up our own messes. They have the technological ability to provide instruments and in order for us to clean up the atmosphere and oceans with their assistance. They're willing to work alongside us, but they're not willing to let us just turn it over to them to clean up our mess. They can provide information and foodstuffs that can eliminate hunger and poverty throughout the world. That's amazing. Increasing human health and longevity through various methods of sound and color, different vibrations. Everything is energetic, including our physical lifetime and the spiritual world. So they're very well aware of and use regularly these energetic methods of sound, color for healing. Free energy devices can be provided. A history. They're ready to also share with us the true human history of Earth, humanity on Earth, and the ET's long-standing presence on Earth. They will give us information and instruction on how to develop our own innate ability of telepathy. You say, well, why telepathy? If you think about it, if everyone was telepathic, you couldn't hide your thoughts or feelings from anyone else, and they couldn't hide their thoughts from you. So there wouldn't be any lies because you'd know it. You just walk away. So as we become more intuitive, more telepathic, that's a good positive sign of our own spiritual development and awareness. All these things are being given to us so that as we develop further technologically and evolve, move out into space, we're also evolving into a spiritual level of awareness. We're not endangering other life forms.
What worries the ETs most regarding the direction mankind is headed in?
That's one of the questions that I asked also. That was 2016 in my book. A couple of years later, 2018, I went back and asked them again if they had any updated information, and they said there was going to be a large energetic shift in the population of Earth, in every living thing on Earth soon. We don't know what soon means. Many more ET civilizations are now interested. We're also reassured that the Greys are no longer interested in Earth or basically even our solar system. We were told also that the original scenario for first contact was also still being considered, but that landings, physical landings, were totally dependent on the level of fear that they perceive in humans. They also said that we believe environmentally, Earth could be entering an irreversible crisis if humans choose to continue ignoring issues such as global warming. Then it will reach a point where not even with our powers could we reverse the effects. This is what they are saying. ET first contact needs to happen sooner rather than later. So we may end up forcing the issue somewhat if we can do so without it becoming volatile. We're attempting now to decide when sooner would be as opposed to later.
I believe you touched on the next question I'm asking you. Perhaps you could elaborate. You say, Howard, the ET races have decided to introduce themselves to us physically in several first contact events, and that humanity will soon be asked to leave its childhood behind and mature into a civilization civilization that reaches for the stars in concert with its galactic brothers and sisters. How far away are we from that, or is it still an unknown?
We're getting closer and closer all the time. We still need to do something. Winding up that conversation in January 2019, they said, what you need to know is that first contact is inevitable or Earth will not survive. They're getting very serious about it. Said the arrival of ETs is inevitable, but it will come in a way that will benefit all of the planet and all of the countries and all groups. Humans need to mature into a single human culture of cooperation before moving into the Galactic Federation as a co-equal with many other advanced spacefaring cultures and governing bodies. So this cultural evolution is one of the things that they're most concerned about. And since you asked, the most recent update I have was just a couple of months ago. And again, similar questions were asked, but the source that I was conversing with at the time was Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael reported that first contact has already happened, but it hasn't been publicized by our governments. First contact has happened, but the event has not, were his words, quote unquote. Remember, I mentioned before that a great energetic shift would happen, quote, soon. I believe that's what they're referring to as the event. So as of April of this year, the planning for first contact has significantly evolved. In fact, it's already happened, but the event has not. Many groups, small groups around the world have already experienced first physical contact, but the event, which is yet to come, is going to be a significant influx of solar and galactic energies. They're highlighted as the solar maximum approaches in 2025. We'll see a great increase in solar activities. This is some of what they're referring to here. The effect of these increasing energies on Earth will be to magnify the effect of polarization differences between those who are in service to self and in service to others. We can see this polarization and duality that we play in all the time, good versus evil, light versus dark. That's what it's all about. We've been assured over and over again that light is winning and has won. It's just going to take a bit of time before it all plays out.
How concerned, Howard, are the ETs that some of the populace on our planet might not react well to the knowledge that we have never been alone in the universe? We'll see them more as enemies than friends and saviors. And should that happen, did the ETs tell you how they would react to such a scenario?
Let's go back to those four criteria that have to happen. They have said now that greater than 50% of humans acknowledge and invite ETs to come here. So that one was satisfied, and that's what they've said. The second one, that 50% or more must evolve into a service to others mentality rather than service to self. They say that's very close. That's within reach. They have no problems with us reaching that, seeing our progress toward that. The third aspect is that no harm will come to the ETs when they arrive. They have some problems with that. They said that this is still a matter of concern, but only in certain countries where there is free and unrestricted use of personal firearms. That would prevent that country from being on the candidate list of first contact events. If you read between the lines, I would not expect a first contact event to have happened in the United States yet. So does that kind of answer your question?
Oh, yes,
The fourth one,
absolutely, yes.
yeah, the fourth question is that no harm would come to the ETs, and they have no problem with that because they can make sure that no harm comes to them. I'm sorry, the fourth one is that no harm comes to humans. They still have concern that humans could harm other humans. They can prevent any human from harming an ET. First contact has happened. The event has not, but we're getting closer. So with that information in the book and the most recent updates, my conclusions are: one, we're not alone. We've never been alone. Don't have to worry about the small grays anymore. What information they needed from Earth, they've got and have moved on. Galactic Federation extraterrestrials are still concerned for humanity's survival. That's why they're taking proactive use in forcing these first contact events so that we wake up to what's really happening on our our world. We must reform our social and governmental institutions, educational, etc., and emphasize development of our spiritual attributes and abilities: compassion, love, tenderness, caring, instead of greed, jealousy, hate, fear, division, separateness, all that.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to buy your book, The ET Speak, Who We Are and Why We're Here, and also learn about the Evergreen Healing Arts Center, which you are the director of, how can they do that?
The ET Speak is my book, and it's one of several that I've written on hypnotherapeutic and spiritual subjects. The easiest way to get more information is to point your browser to Amazon.com and then books. And in Amazon's search box, enter Howard Beatty, Howard, space Batie. And that will give you a listing of all the books that I've written and published. All the books that I've published are available on Amazon.com. As far as Evergreen Healing Arts Center is concerned, I formed that entity in 1998, Chehalis, Washington. But as a result of a stroke, I've had to close my office and I no longer practice hypnotherapy anymore. I do still maintain a website, which is www.howardbeatty.com. And in there you can find a description of my book, The Spiritual Journeys Process, and some hints and links to hypnotherapy organizations that you might want to contact to learn more about this and how you can participate in this evolution and ascension.
Howard Beatty, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yacker. I wish you continued success with your book, everything that you're doing, and also a whole load of healing energy has been sent your way. God bless.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched so that you don't miss any of my upcoming shows, where each week you'll find me yakking with a different outstanding guest. Be sure to subscribe to my free YouTube channel. All you have to do is press the subscribe button on your screen.